This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this evening's episode of The Empty Chair. Tonight's episode is dedicated to Crystal Waugh. She was a 39-year-old former program director of a Journey House Recovery in Sanford, Maine. I did not know her personally, but her obituary really pulled at my heartstrings, and as they all do. And it's just a reminder of, during these times, especially during COVID, that we're stuck in isolation, and isolation is going to kill us. So my heart and my prayers go out to Crystal Waugh's family and her friends, and I just want to dedicate this evening to her. I also want to bring up a reminder, during COVID, that the numbers since COVID began, overdoses are up 30% and suicide rates are 19%. We want you to know that you're not alone. If you're hurting, please reach out. There's myself, Snooky, Jessie. There's many people in recovery who want to help. So please don't do this alone. I always want to thank my sponsors. You'll see their names throughout the evening on the banner, and these are the organizations that help support the show. With their banners being shown, that money goes into an account, so if someone needs a bed at treatment or at a sober house after they complete treatment, we're able to do that. So a big shout out to all our sponsors for still helping us plow through this and just being a financial support for us. So I truly appreciate it. I also wanted to bring up that February is Marijuana Awareness Month. And there's many people who think that marijuana is not addicting, and everyone has their own opinions and whatever on it. And throughout my journey of recovery the past 32 years, I've met many individuals who've been addicted to marijuana, even family members that will now say it is addicting, and also can marijuana lead to other drugs. So I know tonight Jason's going to do a brief education because it is Marijuana Awareness Month, and I asked Snooky, who I love, whoop whoop, to to do a little thing about marijuana, a little brief education, because our show's not only used to share our experience, strength, and hope, but most importantly, this show's used to educate families and people that are out there listening to us. Before we kick off the show, I just want to remind everyone that on Monday nights, we have an amazing program called The Circle of Hope. It's for family and friends that have a loved one that is battling addiction. And Phil and Fran Leahy host this every evening. We're on Zoom at 6:30 to 8 o'clock every Monday evening. You can find the information on Circle of Hope Facebook page, MVP ASAP page, or you can reach out to me for that information. We also provide a resource night the first Monday of every month. We have a resource from the Merrimack Valley come in to share about their program or their organization and what they offer. This past Monday, we had an amazing group come in, Alternative Home Health Care, and they shared about the health care that they offer, nursing into the houses of individuals. And they also spoke a lot about something that they participated in, and it was setting up a camp for the homeless over in Methuen on Pelham Street, and they're serving over 125 individuals, getting them off the street this winter, and that's just amazing. So MVP ASAP, on behalf of MVP ASAP, welcome to tonight's show. And I have two beautiful souls. Snooky, I've known since the beginning of his journey, and it's been a crazy, fun journey all over the place. And Jess, I was blessed to meet at a women's meeting and just felt connected to her ever since, and she's always been on my mind. So let's start the evening off with marijuana and a little education piece on it, Jason. Let's hear what you got.
A little marijuana.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, hey, marijuana Appreciation Month. Thank you so much for having me on, Cole.
Snookums, it's not Appreciation Month, it's awareness.
I am so aware.
Because people do appreciate the weed, just not me. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, so no, thank you for having me. And I did quite an extensive research on marijuana. So according to SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration here in the United States, they classify marijuana as a Schedule One drug. The FDA, it's still federally Schedule One, which means that even all the research that I ended up doing for this and trying to find longitudinal studies, there really isn't many out there because of its classification, which is really, really interesting because Schedule One means that there is absolutely no health benefit and that it is highly abusive. So Schedule Two, there is such drugs such as methadone, OxyContin, oxycodone, Percocet, fentanyl, other opiates, morphine, opium, codeine, hydrocodone. So it's really interesting how marijuana is still classified with no medical benefits. And just a little bit to touch on what marijuana actually is. So marijuana or cannabis is the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States. It acts by binding to cannabinoid receptors in the brain to produce a variety of effects, including euphoria, intoxication, and memory and motor impairments. These same cannabinoid receptors are also critical for brain development. They are also part of endocannabinoid system, which impacts the formation of brain circuits important for decision-making, mood, and responding to stress. And so that's a little background in that. Dr. Jerome Adams, he's actually the retired Surgeon General for the United States. Actually started doing a lot of research behind the upcoming marijuana, THC, CBD movement that's happening in the United States and throughout the world. And he did a lot of studies on brain development and early childhood, adolescent, and what the effects were on the brain. And some of the things that he ended up finding was actually really interesting because what they did was they separated the two different ingredients that's found in marijuana. First, you have the THC, which is, this is a long, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, right? And now that's, I can't believe I pronounced that correctly without tongue twisting. So that component is responsible for the euphoria and intoxication that is found in marijuana, and that is the highly abusive ingredient. However, you also have CBD, which is the cannabidiol. Okay, so I jacked that one up, but so this is non-intoxicating and does not lead to addiction as far as the SAMHSA and the FDA is concerned. So CBD is actually found countrywide. Yep. There's very, very little restrictions on it. And I mean, you can pretty much order it online and get it sent to you anywhere. And so there are a lot of medical benefits that have been found in CBD. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's continued to be used. It's actually, so the FDA has actually approved CBD to treat two different types of epilepsy. And so why it's still classified as a Schedule One illicit drug, I have no idea. It's actually really, really kind of damping down this research that is really needed to be able to find different medical benefits, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so some more little fun facts. So as it stands today, so there are 36 states that have legalized marijuana for medical purposes, and there's actually 15 states plus Washington D.C. that's legalized recreational use of marijuana.
Wow.
Now that goes from state to state, even though the federal regulations on it still classify it as illicit drug with no medical benefits. Each state kind of has their autonomy with these different regulations.
So can I ask you guys, marijuana, did either one of you start with marijuana? Was that ever your first drug? And did you ever think that marijuana would take you off on a whole different road to where it took you?
So yeah, I mean, pot was like my first love.
Yeah.
I definitely started with weed,
Yeah.
so I can say that, yeah, for sure.
Right. And I think it's because it was probably what we could get our hands on, versus anything else. Because if you're anything, I believe you started young. So actually, Jessie, why don't I introduce you at this point to share your experience, strength, and hope. Tell us about your journey. Your journey is amazing. It's heart-wrenching, and it's just a full picture of starting off with marijuana and going into addiction and losing love in addiction and still remaining on this journey of recovery. So the mic's all yours, girl. Share your experience, strength, and hope.
So my name's Jessie. I'm a person in long-term recovery from
Hi,
substance
Jessie.
use disorder. Thank you so much for having me, Cole. Yeah. So for me, what it was like is, I grew up in like Stratham, New Hampshire, in a nice house with everything I needed. And, my parents are still married. They, provided me with a car and helped me pay for college. They paid for my college. I started experimenting with substances when I was in high school, and I really wanted to just fit in. I always felt like an outsider, like I didn't belong. I can identify a couple of things in my early childhood that may have helped contribute to some of the already insecure feelings I was having. When I was 11 years old, my friend Danielle, she died on the soccer field, like right next to me, and at soccer practice one night. So that was obviously something traumatic that happened when I was a child that affected me. I don't feel that I got the appropriate support around that. But it's interesting because all those other girls that were there that night, the majority, I think I'm the only one that ended up in active addiction. Because for me, there was other things going on. There was already codependency going on within me. And then I got picked on by a boy in junior high, and he really just kind of ridiculed me. And I remember he picked on me in the lunchroom one day and just kind of said nobody likes you, no one even wants you here, you should just leave. And I was horrified. It was just the worst I'd ever felt. And I didn't talk to anyone about it though. I went home that day and I went up in my room, closed the door, and I just cried by myself, and I internalized this all. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell my dad. And I think looking back, it was out of fear that they were going to take their love away. I was just so fearful that I wasn't worth anything. And I remember kind of at that point, I made a decision that I never wanted to feel that way again, And for me, what that looked like was following the crowd. I was just so afraid of getting picked on again that I wanted to sit at that lunch table and nobody to question why I was sitting there. So I really followed the crowd and I blended in with the popular girls. And I ended up, at all the parties and had all the friends. But I just felt like such a fraud. I felt like I didn't belong. And that if I actually showed who I truly was, no one wouldn't want me there. So when I did find weed, it was something that I could use all the time. Like alcohol, you had to have someone with an ID buy it for you, and then you had to drink, and there was bottles, and so like I could smoke weed like on my way to school. I could smoke weed like on my lunch break, and I could use it to escape the way that I was the condition that I was feeling, all the time. So that's what I started doing. At 16, it was just like I smoked weed all the time. And then I would go on to find Adderall. I, used Adderall a lot in college, and, lots of alcohol, cocaine came in. Um, I got through UNH somehow. And I was always seeking substances, and it was always, like, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. And then I would always do it. I always would cross that line. Um, and so so when I was 25, I had a child. And after that, I found Percocet. And that was just like, I thought I'd found the answer. Like, I can just take this little tiny sliver of a blue pill and I could clean the whole house. I could, I could mow the lawn. I was like, the best vacuumer when I, you know, did them. I thought it made me better at everything I did. And that's when I would say, quote unquote, the drugs were working, because that's what it feels like in the beginning, that it's making you better. And you really can't see that it's not making you better. And then pretty soon it starts to make you worse. And, from there, things spiraled. There was a period where I was on Suboxone. Um, and then I met my now late boyfriend, Joey, and he did heroin. And I didn't know that when I met him, but we, fell in love very quickly, very hard. And yeah, so it wasn't before long, I wanted to know what he was experiencing and I wanted to understand. So I ended up using heroin. And from that point on, it was just a battle with like IV drug addiction to things to a whole new level, it's just like a whole different ball game. You can't even pretend to function at life, like the reason that I used substances was because it helped me in my mind perform better. Like I wanted to be present in my life, but I wanted something to help me do it. I didn't want to not be present though. I didn't want to a lot of people will like to like use and then like nod off and pass out. And, that wasn't my MO, like I wanted to be up. I wanted to be connecting with people. I wanted to have a life. And those drugs just took away all of that. Um, the depression got so great. I was in and out of jails and rehabs, um, lost custody of my child, lost my house, I got arrested at gunpoint in Lawrence. Um, just new lows just kept happening. And so, yeah, so then it was 4 years ago. I was in treatment, and me and this girl, Sarah, had been we'd been taking Adderall when we were in treatment. And she told, because she really wanted to go back to Manchester and use. Her boyfriend had died of an overdose, and she just was like really wanting to drown that away. And so she told on us, and we got kicked out. That was on a Friday. So I would go down to take the train from Portland down to Lawrence and meet Joey, and got high, And the last time I saw Joey alive was that Saturday. So my birthday was Thursday, that coming Thursday. It was October 12th. 13th was my birthday, and on the 12th, um, I asked Joey to get me some drugs, and I said, it's my birthday, and he was like, no, we're trying to stop. Like, I'm not doing this for you anymore. And I convinced him that, that he owed me or whatever, I just manipulated him because that's what we do, right? That's what we do when we're in addiction. And so he ended up getting me drugs, I guess. I don't know. I never found them. But I did go to his house because he stopped answering his phone and find him overdosed in his bedroom. And he didn't make it back. Obviously, he tried to save him. And I mean, I knew the second that I saw him that he wasn't coming back. And it's like I just like screamed at the top of my lungs, and it was the worst moment of my life. And then about 10 minutes later, I got a text from the owner of the sober living that I'd been at, and my friend Sarah had died on Monday of an overdose. Wow. The one that we got kicked out of treatment together. So I literally lost my boyfriend and my friend within 10 minutes of each other. I, the next day, got arrested on my birthday by my probation officer who, violated me, I think, as a way to protect me. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up in Valley Street Jail on my birthday. No money on my books, no one to call. Dope sick, just like the bottom doesn't get much deeper than that, Yeah. And that wouldn't be enough. That wouldn't be enough to wake me up. That just signed my permission slip. That just gave my addiction permission to really grab hold of me. But I was afraid of heroin, because I had multiple overdoses myself, and I didn't want to die. I have a child. I didn't want to leave him on this earth without me. So, I really battled with IV cocaine use. I would go in and out of treatment for the next year. Ended up on drug court in Rockingham County. And got terminated from drug court in sobriety because I couldn't stay away from a guy that I met on drug court because I was, the rules didn't apply to me and I was going to do what I wanted to do. And so I ended up getting terminated. And that was where my journey really began. When I was able to get terminated from drug court in sobriety, I knew that this problem didn't have anything to do with drugs and alcohol. This was a me problem, and I was going to keep doing this until I was willing to take a look at myself and do some work. And I was tired of hurting the people that I loved, having to tell my son that I'm in jail again. It's just the worst thing that I could ever experience, And so I've, met some great women. I got out of jail in September of 2018. My sobriety date is February 17th of 2018. So it was prior to going in.
Amen.
And I came out, was on the bracelet for a while, and I started going to lots of meetings and lots of hot yoga classes. I could only leave my house for self-help stuff or work. And I was lucky enough to live with my parents, and that's probably part of the reason that I was able to recover. So God bless them. That I had that support, and I was able to really say, I'm going to figure this out now. I'm going to go to meetings, I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to do some hard things. And I'm going to do it for 8 weeks and see how that works out. Maybe it'll make me feel better. And if not, then I can go back to the way I was living before. because like I just sat in jail for 6 months. I can at least try to live differently for 8 weeks and see how it goes. I wouldn't even say 90 days. I was like, I'm going to go with 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where the change really happened. Was I got a sponsor, I did step work. For me, I really think that the hot yoga is part of my story, and I like to mention it because I found that like lots of people in recovery, especially from opiate addiction, benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I do hot Pilates now, and that's my biggest cheat code I could give to anyone in recovery. Is that's the closest I get to feeling high, being sober.
Nice.
And I do inferno hot Pilates, so it's like hell on earth, but then it's great because you just feel so good after.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I work at Bonfire. Yep. I'm getting my master's in social work.
Amen.
I have my son back in my life.
Amen.
And
how old is your son?
He's 12.
He's 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's like at that age where like I'm getting nervous for him.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I have just learned and grown so much from my journey. It made me who I am. I carry Joey in my heart, and I had an experience where like I saw a medium and like I connected to him, and it made me realize that there's things possible in this world that I never knew before. Yeah. And I would not have known that had I not lost him and gone down the road that I went down.
Yeah.
So like I'm just so grateful for it, and like I feel sad sometimes for like the destruction I caused along the way, and I feel sad that Joey wasn't able the opportunity to recover because of fentanyl. And I have survivor's guilt sometimes around that, especially where I like begged him to get drugs that day. That's something I've really had to forgive myself for. But I know that he's with me, and
Amen.
I know he's like my angel. So I have a really strong connection with him today, and a connection with a higher power, all because of him, you know. So like I really take pride and have passion in sharing his story and his message as well as mine. And like I get lots of clients that come in the doors that have just lost people of overdoses all the time, and I get to like walk with them in that grief, and it's really like beautiful because I get to be there for them and see them in that moment. And I do this thing with them where we take one of the like a Chinese lantern, and we light the lantern, and we play some nice music, and the whole house comes out, and they let the lantern go. And that's what we had done for Joey when I lost him. And so I get to be there to like mark these moments with them, and it's I just like, they pay me to do that kind of work, and it's like I would pay to be there for that. It's just the most meaningful thing to me. And so how can you say that it's not God's will, and that this wasn't meant to be the way that it is?
Yeah.
So
yeah, remarkable. And the same story with, that's where we have the same story, is the death of my boyfriend in high school is what led me into self-destruction. He wasn't into drugs, or he had a very rare heart disease that went unnoticed. And but as much as I miss him and I think of him daily and often wondered what he would look like and stuff, his death sent me down into hell. And it was there where I met God and where my whole life changed. And I don't know if I didn't have that experience that I would be who I am today. So I totally identify with it. I think it's great that that you have this layer, this onion, that different layers of healing, because I'm sure every time a man or woman come to you and they have recently lost a loved one, that this is part of your healing process as well, and they're probably teaching you something about yourself, and and a lot of forgiveness work. It would be mandatory to be doing for yourself on to let go of that day, because you did say God's will, and that's where we have to keep it, and that's where we have to believe it. But your story is remarkable. I know you did a lot on the seacoast. I came to the opening of was it SOS? Is that the one that's in Hampton? And then I think COVID happened, and I have no idea what's happening at this time. But you're a very powerful woman. And if anyone's listening tonight and they're struggling, what would be your words of wisdom? What would be your words of advice to give them?
So, there's hope, and just
Amen.
connection is the answer, and it begins with connection, healthy connection to self, and that involves being connected to the people around you. But just ask for help, and, if you're a family member of someone that's struggling, like, we just have to love people through it. And I'm not saying, like, we can't set boundaries and, set boundaries with love, but, this is a disease, and it's hard to love an addict or, a person that's in active addiction. It's very challenging.
It's hard not to take it personal.
Remember that those behaviors are part of it. They're part of the disease. And just try to love them through it, and don't pretend it's not happening either. So.
Amen. And I also love that you implemented exercise. That was for myself. That was my survival mode of being able to exercise and being able to move that energy. Like my therapist used to say, don't let the thought of drinking last longer than 3 seconds, or it's going to own you. I don't care how you move that energy, but move it. So it was jumping jacks, it was running, it was push-ups, it was just get that out of me. And the whole thing with the sweating in the hot yoga that you're doing, like that's a natural high. And so where you're at along in your recovery for only being sober and clean since 2018, you are a lot farther than some other people, because you utilize these tools to get you where you're at. So you're a miracle.
I know with the hot yoga is so vital to us in recovery.
Amen.
Because we store trauma, aka stress, right? Fear, in our body at a cellular level. Right? And without moving the body, doing yoga, meditation, we are not going to be able to alleviate that stress. It stays in us at a physiological level.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And that the yoga, like that movement therapy, can actually start the healing process for the mental healing. You know what I mean? So like you can start healing your body physically, and that's going to help your mind heal as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Jess. And I'm going to introduce Jason. And again, Snooki, I've known you since the beginning of your journey, since the day that you walked out of jail and you were brought to a Sunday evening meeting. You and Craig were two of my favorite people to witness throughout this journey, and we've had some amazing times. No matter where Jason and I go, we get kicked out because we get kicked out in recovery because that's who we are. So Snookums, I know you have a very powerful story to share with our audience tonight about hope and about recovery. So can you share a little bit of your experience, strength, and hope with the listeners this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I am a person in long-term recovery, first and foremost. I am sober today, but for the grace of God.
Amen.
And through the 12 steps. I am a licensed clinical social worker and master's level drug and alcohol counselor. Back when I ended up getting out of jail for the last time in 2011, I didn't think that there was anything for me in my future. And that's just not true, right? We can do anything we want to in life. We are the only ones putting limitations on ourselves. And that was a beautiful, remarkable thing that I ended up finding in doing the work that is involved in recovery, and staying vigilant and doing it each and every single day. So my story, a little bit about how I started out. So my nickname growing up was the Red Rooster. People still call me the Rooster. So it was because at 5 o'clock in the morning, when everybody else was trying to sleep, I was still wide awake, partying, yelling "woo," keeping everybody else up, and so that was me. And eventually, where my drinking and drugging brought me, it started off being this so much enjoyment and fulfillment, and it just completed me so much. But where it brought me to at the end of it was there was no more Red Rooster. There was no more enjoyment. It was me alone in my room, drinking copious amounts of Zanka bottles, and I was a Class A IV heroin and cocaine user as well. And so, my recovery journey has been long. It's had its ups. It has its downs. Cole has had to show up to hospital rooms and kick my butt, literally.
Oh my God.
And you know what? I think of that as like, man, but for the grace of God, right? We have each other's back so much.
Amen.
That I can't imagine not being in recovery nowadays, right? I can't imagine it. The fellowship, the community, right, that has grown up around me now. I am never alone. And you're right, Cole. Anybody listening tonight, please reach out, because what I do on a daily basis is I give back what was so freely given to me. It was kind of worded to me like this, right? Every single time I would get out of a psych ward, every single time I would get out of a jail cell, I was consistently putting the cart before the horse. And what that means is me getting sober, and my plan looks like, okay, this time, okay, I've got it figured out. I'm first gonna get the good job with a lot of money. Once I get the money, then I will get the girlfriend eventually. I will get the wife and the house with the white picket fence. And then once I have all those things, of course, then I'll no longer have a desire to drink or use copious amounts of narcotics. But unfortunately, I was leaving out a vital component to that equation, right? And that was my higher power, what I choose to call God nowadays. If I wake up nowadays and I choose to chase God with the vigilance like I did those very first days back in 2011, all of those other things that I just mentioned, all of my deepest desires, all of my hopes and my dreams, those things fall into place just naturally, right? And it was 2011 when my very first sponsor came in to Rockingham County Correctional Facility. I used to call it Rockingham Country Club, my home away from home. He came in there and he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he said, "You never have to feel this way ever again." And he said, "I can show you the way out because somebody showed me, and I can show you too." And man, those words just always stuck with me. Nobody had ever said that to me. I had been in and out of adolescent programs. I had talked to psychiatrists, caseworkers, psychologists, social workers, mental health counselors. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
But nobody had ever sat down next to me and said, hey, like, I know exactly what you're going through because me too. And so that started my journey. And a little bit of what I do nowadays. Nowadays, I work for an organization in the treatment world. It's called Aware Recovery Care. We provide in-home addiction.
I used to work there with you.
Yeah, you did, Paul, and you were a rock star. I remember the days of the CPR, right?
Yeah.
CPR training, right?
Staying alive.
And so now what my job is I have been given the responsibility to go out to each and every single new state that we're opening up in and help train
Amen.
all of the new providers that are now providing care in all these new locations, right? How cool. I could have never imagined that. I could have never possibly dreamed that I would have been doing that when I was sitting in my jail cell. Back then it was, holy cow, how am I going to stay sober, and what kind of janitorial or custodial job am I going to be able to get?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And what's so like Aware Recovery, when they came into existence of doing bring the recovery into the home, did they ever think that a pandemic would be coming along 8 years later after they start this organization, to that people have to be at home, and look at all of the individuals that they hire and all those that are getting treatment in the house because of, one, what they started, and two, we're in a pandemic, and now the treatment's coming to you. So I'm happy to hear that it's going to other states, because when I was there, we were just, can't we get into Massachusetts? It was only Connecticut, New Hampshire. Let's grow this, and so I'm really happy to hear that that's what you're doing out in Florida as well, and hopefully around the states that will be able to take the insurance, because that was an amazing program for people who are afraid to leave the house, for people who aren't ready to leave the house, to bring a plan of action into your home. And then not only are you working with the addict or the alcoholic, you're incorporating the family members, and it's just an amazing treatment plan that these folks designed, and it was really great to see it in action.
Yeah, because Cole, you know better than anybody. I mean, we heal out in the community,
Yeah.
right? And we heal with one another, and we rally around each other. And man, like what a beautiful existence do we have nowadays?
Yeah.
As long as I follow certain spiritual principles, and I'm not talking about religious principles by any means. I'm talking about spiritual principles, waking up in the morning and deciding to do something nice for somebody else, as opposed to just thinking of how I'm going to feel happy through the day.
Yeah. It's all about giving back to others. And I know both these are speaking about the yoga piece, and like my favorite nights were Tuesdays with Pierce over at Green Mountain in Salem, New Hampshire, of Pierce just getting us right in the mind and doing yoga. And now I see you at different things, Jason, and you're expanding yourself in that area as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you do physically for yourselves, for your mental health, for your well-being?
Sure. Yeah, Jessie, you want to pop this one off?
Oh, I already talked about what I do
she already
physically.
gave us her hot yoga and everything. What do you have?
It's all on me. Okay.
Yeah, what are you doing for self?
I see. Okay. So physically, so I used to be a gym nut. When I was first getting sober, it was all about looking good aesthetically. And so I was going to the gym, one would say alcoholically,
Right.
trying to regain some type of physical fitness. but really it was it was not according to my spiritual guidelines that I have nowadays. I do yoga every single day. I meditate. I'm going to make sure that I get outside at least every other day to put my bare feet down on the ground to reconnect with the earth, reconnect with the mother. And I always make sure I connect with other people. Sometimes nowadays it's not easy with COVID, but I do try and stay in some type of physical contact with other people because I need that, right? Like I need, a hug.
Yeah.
And I hug other people. And I know it sounds so silly and it even may sound a little cliche, but, it is the contact between one another that keeps us going, that keeps us thriving and provides fulfillment in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the pandemic, how have you two, who have some time under your belt, how have you been handling this mentally? How have you gone to meetings? Like we used to be able to go to meetings 7 days a week, 4 times a day if we wanted to, see our peeps, hug, talk. And now here we are, pandemic, masks on, which our addiction was a mask to begin with. Now we have a physical mask on. Can't touch, can't go to meetings. And how are you two navigating through this?
So I would say that for me, when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh, self-care is canceled. Like, I don't have to go to meetings anymore. Like, I don't have to work a recovery program. That's what my disease told me, you know? And, I did the Zoom and stuff for a little bit, but my heart was never into it. And, so that was like kind of like my emotional relapse started there, and I did get into like a bad place and struggle with a lot of the behaviors, start to come out, and I'm discontent and, I wasn't putting the action in, And luckily, I have a good support network, and I lean on the people around me, and I stay connected because then I'm able to get honest about, where I'm falling short and have people help me along the way. But yeah, it looks totally different today. I don't get to as many in-person meetings or just meetings in general because I still do have some weird resentment against Zoom. I'm on the computer screen too much. I don't want to have to go to a Zoom meeting or whatever. It's just like my disease working on me. I don't know what it is, but so I get to like 2, maybe 3 meetings, in-person meetings a week. I do fellowship every Sunday night after the Exeter Young People.
Amen.
So we go out to dinner.
Amen.
And that's my home group, the Exeter Young Peoples. We're at the Stratham Town Hall temporarily, Sunday nights from 7 to 8.
Nice.
And so that's mine and Snook's, both of our home groups.
Yep.
And
I sent you guys a few good people that way as well.
Yeah, and we've seen some people that have actually come and spoken. Your name gets dropped quite often.
It does. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I do hot Pilates and hot yoga a couple days a week.
Yep.
I meet with my sponsor at least weekly. I don't call her enough, but I'm on my amends. So I'm continuing the work. I pray.
Yep.
And I just want to say one thing about yoga is that it helps you set an intention. Like it reminds you to set an intention to be good to your body, right?
Yeah.
And you remember that you don't want to put bad things in your body and you want to be kind to yourself. And that helped me in the beginning. When I would have those moments, I would remember that I only want to do positive things for my body and I want to be kind to myself.
Mm.
So that's one thing that is a benefit of yoga. And now, Snook, over to you on the COVID question.
There you go, Jess.
Hey, good transition. I love that. Yes. So I'm gonna try and say this without you guys resenting me too much. But down here in Florida, I gotta tell you,
They don't have COVID.
they don't.
My brother lives there. He sends pictures every day. They have no masks.
Nope.
They're
no
living
masks,
life. Nothing.
Zero masks, and to tell you that Trump is still president down here. But no, real though, I've been going out to beaches almost every single day and
Amen.
out on the sand. I mean, it is incredible to see people rallying around one another during this really, really difficult time. And like you were talking about earlier, Cole, absolutely suicide rates are spiking, mental health rates are spiking, substance use disorder rates are spiking, and now is the time that we need to rally around each other even stronger. Back home, when I was up there in New Hampshire, there were some underground meetings that people were going to that were off the books, right? It was kind of like it was like a speakeasy, but except for sobriety, right? Like what's the passcode?
Yep.
And because people are like fighting for their sobriety, fighting for their life. That's what we're doing here, and it's wonderful.
So in Florida, do they have open meetings and everything like going on, and nothing stopped for them, which just blows my mind that there's no COVID in Florida, and we're losing people every single day, and it's just absolutely 200 people die a day from addiction, and that's insane. And I'm sure the numbers when they come out for 2020 into when we get the numbers for 2020 this year, they're going to be astronomical, Yes. And even like we had a lot of old timers that relapse because they don't use the computer. They don't know how to use the computer, and you want them to go on a meeting on a computer, and so the isolation began, and isolation, and it led them to pour me a drink for the relief, and it's been very devastating to see what it is. And like you said, we have to come together. We have to be, but if we're not taking care, like I'm going through depression. I've been battling depression. I have been sitting there like. There are some days where I just sit there and cry, like, when's this going to stop? When is life going to be normal again, And if we don't take care of our own mental health, we're going to be worth junk to people, So I love that you're in Florida, that you're getting some vitamin D, and that you're just being out there and being a pure example to people. Like recovery can still happen even during a pandemic. My heart aches for the newcomer to come in because... What was it like when I got sober in 1987? We were smoking in basements. We were drinking coffee. There were hundreds of people, A newcomer today, oh yeah, go to a meeting over here and check into this Zoom meeting. And like, where's the connection? Because for myself, my sobriety is only as long as it is because I always remained connected. I knew once I let go of the disconnect of the disease, of the people, I would have been gone. And I heard, meeting makers make it. So it was so important for me to go to a meeting because I didn't have another sober in me. And I knew I had many more drunks in me, but I didn't have another sober. So I just held on to that. And like, we're blessed that we got sober and clean with men and women in a group. And I just pray that this ends soon. Or I'm sure the rates of recovery right now might be looking good in Florida, because you still have that connection. You're not making the isolation. There's no isolation going on there, and so it's just it's tough times. And we have these shows so that we can offer hope, so we can tell someone out there, if you're struggling, don't give up. If you're struggling, reach out. There are so many people that want to help. You have the Aware Recovery that will go into the home. You have AA, you have NA, you have churches, One of the things I didn't mention was Celebrate Recovery meets in Plastown, New Hampshire on Tuesday nights. And that's an amazing group to get in touch with. And they're on Zoom right now with the hopes of hopefully our numbers are going to start going down. At my job now, I have to get tested once a month. And I was just told, the numbers are starting to go down. in January. That's when I took my test, and I'm like, of course they are, you know. But I'm glad that they're going down because I need normalcy in my life, you know. I don't know if I was new and if this was 1987 and I was getting sober and a pandemic came upon us. I don't know if I would have made it this far. So I constantly pray for individuals getting clean and sober. And I know there's an amazing meeting starting tonight, the Haven of Hope in Methuen. They're starting their Women's Big Book Step Study meeting, and they're starting it on Zoom as well because they can't have people into the residence yet. And but just to keep that connect going, and the two of you, like, you guys are foot soldiers, and don't ever stop what you're doing, and just don't ever stop until you finish your school, and keep going and keep pushing through. And Snooky, just keep being the red rooster out there, you know. Snooky, like, you didn't tell half your funny stories, which are, like, this kid got his first DUI was on a big wheel at age 16 on Route 88 in Somersworth, a stratum, you know.
Go-kart, yeah.
Yeah, and oh my God, like, I pee my pants. And then you used to come to Stratford County when I was an instructor there, and you would speak to my kids and share your experience, strength, and hope there, and I'll never forget it. And then you really, a few years back, you know, you really showed me how strong this disease was when I went on a mission and I found you. And I found you in Boston Hospital on a whim, and you were mortified that I had found you. Mm-hmm. And then you were like, oh, I'll never do this again, as they were about to amputate your arm, you know, like, oh, I'm never going to use again. And then you go, can you step outside for a minute? I got to text someone. And I step outside and I went, he's asking for drugs. Why couldn't he text someone in front of me? And I came in and started beating the shit out of you. And the nurse came in thinking you came after me, and security's dragging me off of you. And that was just, that was when I saw how strong addiction had you. And I made you say goodbye to me that day, if you remember, because I said, I know I'm not going to see you again. And I was convinced that I was burying you, and I'm just so grateful that I didn't, and I'm so grateful that you got over the other side. Like, when do we finally cross that line to get over to the other side? When do we finally find it within us to wipe ourselves off and say, I'm going to do treatment and I'm going to make it work, you know? And I'm just blessed that both of you have, and that you don't stop, and that you continue to do this. So thank you both for being here this evening.
Cool. I just want to mention,
Yeah.
have you ever mentioned to your audience the Mercy Street meeting in Plastow on Tuesday nights? It's for people that have lost people to addiction, or if your life's affected by addiction in any way. It's Tuesday nights. I think it's 7.
Is that Aaron and his wife, Pastor Aaron and his
Aaron
wife?
and Wendy,
Yep.
122 Main Street in Plastow.
Yep.
And that meeting was essential for me in healing, and I found like a family there that supported me in my grieving process.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's magic that happens inside those walls. So
You know, I'm going to reach out to them. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to have them on the show and have them
they're
talk a little bit
amazing.
about that. Yeah, I've met Aaron. Aaron, when we were opening the Haven of Hope, he had brought in Bibles over for the girls. He was actually doing some work over there with the girls as well before COVID, and he hasn't been able to be back in there. But they're great people. So that is right, that the Mercy Street is for people who have lost a loved one. Again, on Monday nights, we have the Circle of Hope for people who are struggling, have a loved one that is struggling, and that is with Phil and Fran Leahy. We have Celebrate Recovery on Tuesday evenings in Plastow that I want to give a shout out there too. And again, if you're listening tonight, you know, thank you for being here with us. Thank you. We want you, we need you, and we love you. And if you're struggling, please don't do this alone. By yourself, you can't. Together, we can, and we will. So please reach out and be with us. And I will see my listeners and my viewers in 2 weeks. I have Louis coming back as my co-host, and he's bringing a guest. And Louis Diaz is a great man of God and a great man of recovery. So thank you again for being with us this evening. Thank you both for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And God bless. Have a great evening, and I'll see you folks in 2 weeks.